Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so talk about a few things in the NBA. Jaren Jackson Jr. is up for a Supermax extension coming up very soon, worth upwards of 340 plus or something like that. This is one of those situations where you got to discipline your mind to understand that the amount of money that's going around is just more in general. And maybe that's like equivalent to what we saw as a $275 million contract maybe 5 years ago, right? Question is, even if I believe that to be the case, am I really playing Jaren Jackson Jr. that to play for the Memphis Grizzlies? See, the problem that we run into is it's like you say, well, based on the letter of the law and all that he's accomplished, he's earned that money. He deserves that money. And that's what it is in regards to what you can expect from more people getting paid. So it's like, all right, if I try to discipline myself into believing all of that, I can talk myself into paying Jaren Jackson Jr. that money. Problem is, he is probably a number 2 on the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, he's one very important player. Don't get it twisted. He's one of the best defenders in the league, a rebounding guy, stretch the floor big. That is a very important piece. But for him to be making the type of money that should be going to some of the elite basketball players in the league, I just can't see myself. I don't think he's good enough for me to justify doing that. Now, the question does become, can you replace him if he walks with anything as good as him or better when you're saying, okay, well, this is supposed to go to such and such type of player? And the answer is probably not. And that also is worked into the price tag. You let Jaren Jackson walk or you trade him for something, you're not getting back anything as good as him, and you're not getting anything back that's going to justify that amount in your mind. It's not like somebody's sending you Luka Doncic. You know what I mean? Nobody's sending you Shea or Wemby. So the question remains is, are you going to let your guy go that you drafted and developed into being this player because you don't believe he's worth the money when nothing that is worth the money is walking through your door either? And so that's part of the question that I think has to be answered as well. You're Memphis, you're a win-now basketball team. My thing with Memphis is, it's not Jaren Jackson's contract that I really have a problem with. It's Desmond Bane's contract that I have a problem with. That's the contract you need to move. Desmond Bane is Bradley Beal. That's what he's developed into. Basically a Bradley Beal. Can really stretch the floor, nice scoring guy, can really light it up on a hot night. But is he making anybody else better? Is he a lockdown defender? Is he going to make it so that a bunch of kids are buying his jersey? Like, no, none of that at all. Is he even a number 3? Yeah, maybe. But like, you picked up Jalen Wells and kind of getting the same thing from Jalen Wells on a rookie contract. So like, why is he making $200-something million? So that's the thing with the Memphis Grizzlies. It's one of those situations where this is a team you'd like to keep together. All things considered, you'd like to keep this team together. There should be something worked out in the collective bargaining agreement to where if you have a really good team, but the pieces haven't ballooned into anything that would otherwise make you more famous as a team, maybe like put guys buying their jersey and stuff like that, or players that don't ultimately, if they're left alone, can be built around not costing so damn much of your cap. There's something to work that out to where teams that are hovering above the fray but not elite can afford to keep their teams, especially if they drafted all their guys. There should be something that works that out into the equation to where it don't cost more than $450 million to keep the whole team together if the team is not, filled with like great players and superstar names that are going to bring back so much revenue. You know what I mean? Because what you don't want to do is end up having these guys go to these bad teams just to get the paper, and then they never find themselves on a situation. Thank you, brother. Have a good one, man. They don't have the opportunity to find themselves in winning situations anymore because they take a bag from Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So that's what you don't want. And so that's my thing. I think that if it comes down to it, I think the NBA should try to work out something in the collective bargaining agreement that allows for guys to stay with the team they were drafted with, get money that fits their production level and not be so enticed by these super contracts that ultimately make them richer than their wildest dreams, but ends up having them on bad teams that can't get better. But you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know, man. Guys want their money, right? I mean, you only got how many years to play in the NBA? You lock down big contracts, takes care of your life. You know, you're set for life. So who am I to say that the team aspect and the winning aspect and the overall we draft them, we want to keep them for life aspect is more important than guys getting their individual financial goals in order, right? But as a fan of the sport and as a fan of competitive basketball and winning, if I have a team like the Memphis Grizzlies, I don't want teams to be able to poach my guy with big contracts just to bring him to situations where he's never that great on anymore. You know what I mean? You're not going to win there because the only thing they can afford is him and maybe a few other guys. And he's just sitting there rotting, but he got a lot of money. He ends up being a journeyman on a bad contract. He could have stayed with the team he was drafted in and continue on a legacy career that together those guys could come and maybe win a championship with their ceiling. You know what I mean? Like a Memphis Grizzlies team, you keep that team together for about 5-6 more years. One of these years they might luck up and win it. You know what I mean? But a guy like Jaren Jackson, you tell the owner you got to pay him $350 million. It's like, nah, I'm trading this boy away. And that signals the end of what they've built. Pieces start falling off because of that type of thing. Fans love teams that they drafted all the players and the team is really good every year, especially in markets where championship glory isn't often found. I'm a Memphis team. I got Jaren Jackson, I got John Moran, I got Desmond Bain, I got Jalen Wells. We drafted all these people. Zach Edey. Let's keep them together for 8-9 years. These dudes ain't doing nothing nowhere else. I mean, they may. I don't want to say that, but nothing as great as being together their whole careers, playing for the one franchise their whole careers. And so, why should it be some financial limitations or deterrents keeping this team from being together? If we figure out that equation, I think you'll have more dedicated fans being fans of teams. Because you'll have teams that 5-year-olds get to see stay together well into their high school days. With only role players leaving. That's a great thing, man. Trust me, as a Laker fan who watched Kobe for 20 years, that's a great thing. Now, sometimes you have teams that stay together and, it's like, all right, let's move on. And you want the flexibility to be able to move on from pieces when it's run its course. You look at the Lakers situation with AD. I think most Laker fans are very happy we made the AD trade. We love AD, but that situation ran its course. So it's not the same thing. We would have loved to have kept AD, but if you put, Luka on the table, of course you want to be able to make that trade without anything in the way. So that goes both ways in the sense that flexibility and the incentive to keep continuity. How you doing, brother? All right, man. You have a great one. That allows you to see improvements and sustainability with what it is that you please with. Stay together, you have that ability to do either is what I'm trying to express to you guys. And so that's what I'm saying to you guys. I hope that the NBA sees the fruit in hearing this point of view to say, if I have a team like the Memphis Grizzlies, the last thing I want to do is trade away a guy that we drafted and developed into a very good player just because the owner doesn't want to pay him a certain amount of money. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want to see him get his money, but if he's up to get well beyond what his production level should garner, then the incentive for the owner to save their money because this player ain't in fact worth it is only logical for somebody to decide against. You're telling a billionaire to make a good decision with his money. It's not hard to do. I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks Jaren Jackson should be getting more money than Jason Tatum or Luka Doncic or nothing like that. Nobody thinks that. And so that's what it comes down to. Do I think if I trade Jaren Jackson for Luka Doncic, I got a better team? Of course. You know what I mean? And because that's the case, there's no way that Luka doesn't get the 350, but Jaren gets the 350. And this market It's a copycat market. It's a copycat league. So if I seen the Dallas Mavericks trade away Luka Doncic to keep from paying him this amount, you damn right I'm going to trade away Jaren Jackson to keep from paying him that amount. That's just how business is done. Dallas ain't going to be on the hook for Luka Doncic, who is worth that money. I sure as hell ain't going to be on the hook for Jaren Jackson, who ain't worth that money. So I think the likelihood that Jaren Jackson gets traded is high, depending on the owner's point of view on this conversation. Because at the end of the day, it's just left up to the owner's discretion. Maybe the owner feels Jaren Jackson is worth that money and he pays it. Logic be out the window. He values Jaren $350 million, and so he will pay him. That just depends on the owner. But in a league where owners tend to follow one another and copy one another, one has to assume that the Memphis Grizzlies are almost expected to move on from Jaren off the strength of this in plays. So maybe even will be encouraged by other owners who don't want to pay their superstars. Say, yo, keep this train going, man. Make it normalized for us to trade these dudes away, even if they're deserving of this money, let alone if they're not. Get that boy off your team. So we can set the tone for the rest of these superstars that they will not expect this money, or that they'll be more likely to take a pay cut if they want to stay where they're at. Like that type of psychological demonstration is often something that I'd imagine owners see the fruit in when it comes to certain hard lines that are drawn. And so it's a lot of stuff going against these players that are in this era, because at the end of the day, you're trying to follow up the LeBron James, Kobe Bryants, Michael Jordans. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't see any of them dudes in this league right now coming up in this next generation. There's nobody like that, to where I'm going to feel like it makes sense for me to give them $400 million. Like nobody I see is worth that right now. If Luka ain't worth that, then nobody's worth that. Maybe Wembanyama. I think Wembanyama might be the only one, and I mean the only one, that could potentially you say, all right, he's worth that, because people are going to put on his uniform. They're going to see him play. He could potentially be a championship level player for many years to come because of his metrics and his skill set. He's like a 7'4" guard that has defensive player of the year potential every year. Yeah, that might be the only player in the NBA that you might say, all right, if it comes down to it, I'll give him $400, $500 million. Everybody else, not really, man, because you're trying to follow a LeBron James-like guy, and that's impossible when it comes to the value of what he does internationally, in terms of winning, in terms of all of the different things that ultimately matter in these circumstances. You want this type of draw to not only be what helps you win, but ultimately it's going to make fans want to buy these people's jerseys and, that type of thing. So that's the problem. I don't see too many superstars in the NBA. And because of it, the likelihood that I think owners going to want to trade these kids away just to keep from paying them is higher. You know what I mean? I don't see that. Now, the WNBA has a couple superstars in it. You got your Caitlin Clarks. You got Reese, Angel Reese. You got, like, these are charismatic figures that people are going to buy their jersey, sit down, and pay a lot of money to see. Juju's coming in soon. Like, these are superstars who, even if we're not talking about basketball, people want to still, promote their product. So how many of those people are coming into the league going forward? Can Cooper Flagg be one of those people? Like, it's not just about basketball talent. It's about personality, charisma, and awe-inspiring aura, so to speak. And the NBA just don't have too many of those guys in the generation that's coming in. It's none of that. Really. And so, I'm going to justify paying somebody that much money. The reason why they are able to get that much money is because that was what was brought in by the superstars of the previous era. So if you can't live up to that, then why am I giving you that? It's not like me giving you that is going to garner me a continuation of that type of growth. And so that's the problem. That's the real problem. Is the growth potential of doing that doesn't seem to be very great. And so if I'm doing all the thinking here, I'm just telling you, Jaren Jackson probably getting traded to keep from having to pay him out. And the next guy, if he's not of a certain caliber, then it's only going to be a few owners that probably willing to pay a guy out of loyalty. I don't think so. You give him $350 of the cap for what? When I can get that same production from a rookie, if I just trade this guy for a bunch of picks, I'll probably, get that production on rookie contracts. It just don't make no sense. It don't make any sense to pay these dudes that much. They're good, but they ain't that great to where it's like, I can't find that production elsewhere. Even if I can. That's the problem. So, I feel for these guys, It ain't their fault that they not LeBron James or Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? It's not their fault. They're not Steph Curry. It's not their fault. They're not that great of a draw, flashy light type of players. They're not. They're fun. And they may have cult followings in their various markets, but they're not going to make you feel like, okay, they're going to break the record in jersey sales. They changing the game. They pushing the culture a different side. I don't see any of that in this league right now. Now maybe somebody emerges, but I don't know where they at right now. Like literally. And so, yeah, man. Maybe the next generation will bring us something. Maybe in the next couple of drafts you might find one or two of them dudes, and that changes the dynamic. I think Luka going to the Lakers is huge, and turning him into something like that. That's a step forward in turning him into something like that, especially if he's able to win here. Jokic, the best player in the league, don't have that type of personality. He's more like Tim Duncan than he is like a, Magic Johnson. You know what I'm saying? Like personality-wise. That part is really important in selling the game and keeping it so that the growth potential could be astronomical. You gotta find some superstars, man. Y'all gotta find y'all Caitlin Clark, for real. It seems like the women are getting all the superstars right now. And that's great for their league, which is in need of growth. But for a league that's trying to sustain it, where's the next superstar coming from? I think that, history tells us they're coming. But maybe not necessarily on the horizon, So that's why I think it's, the NBA should shift its understanding from the superstar push to the sustainability of cult followings and stuff like that. Like a team like the Memphis Grizzlies, you want to keep them together. You want to try to build the franchises up as it pertains to rivalries and stuff like that. I think that might be the way to go, since none of these guys appear to be like super charismatic superstars. It's going to be in the collection of them as a group, play styles and stuff like that. I think that's going to be what really makes people feel excited about this league is teams. I think experimenting with bringing physicality back could potentially be a draw in that way, because now what you end up finding out is that people love the physicality. They love the contact that's been lacking. The three-point shot is cool, but what happens when this era is suddenly faced with old rules? That's what I would experiment with. Try it out for a season, see if that works out. And then you can start seeing rivalry come from that, for which we've discussed a couple times. Rivalries is what it's about, man. Rivalries and rabid fan bases, and then look, I tell the NBA like this: if you can't find superstars on the court, maybe you're not looking in the right places. Maybe it's in some of these talking heads on YouTube and in various different places that you're not necessarily paying attention to, but the fans are. That may be where your superstars are at. They may not be on the court. It may be in the talent off of it. So the NBA is going to have to start finding ways of being creative and start empowering some of these young people who are, making careers on the sidelines around the product. I consider myself, but I'm thinking more like some of these youngsters, I'm not actually thinking of me when I say that. I'm thinking more like some of these dudes that are really interested in getting famous, the big draws, so to speak, and draw a lot of views and stuff like that. Maybe start investing in some of the younger ones who are going to maybe turn themselves into I show speed for the NBA, or, you know what I mean? You need something like that. You need one of them type of dudes to kind of have a draw outside of the league, but be based on the NBA. That type of thing is big, man, in this streaming era. So that might be the way to go for the NBA. That might be the way. That might be where it's at. So I don't know. That's just like me brainstorming if I were in the think tank of the NBA, trying to figure out how we can move this thing forward over the next several years. I know people think international is the way to go as it pertains to start having games in international places, but I think the travel becomes a little bit hectic for the athlete. You got to figure out that equation before you jump into that. If you start having games in Europe every week, the travel's going to get a little ridiculous. I'm just being honest. That's when it becomes ridiculous. Maybe you can start doing like a league versus league thing, and then at the end, after the finals, have them play another type of playoffs or something. I don't know. That might be too much basketball, but have a 3-game, the champion of this league versus the champion of that league type of thing. But as far as having them cross back and forth and having games constantly be in Europe and China and stuff like that, that's going to get ridiculous. I don't think you should do that unless you can figure out how to cut down the travel somehow. Maybe you have a team in China for like a month. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know how that works, but if you're trying to put teams all over the world and then have guys traveling all over the world all the time, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble. I don't think that it looks good at all for the athlete in terms of his performance. I don't think so. So I would keep it domestic in that regard, and then, like I said, maybe invest in other leagues, start building up those leagues, and hopefully. The problem is trying to balance out the talent, though. It's like if all the best talent is in the NBA, then you're going to have them playing against the equivalent of a G League type of thing when you have guys going to Europe at the end of the year playing the European champions. It's like the equivalent of playing against the modern-day Toronto Raptors. Like, this is not – it ain't good enough talent. And if you don't build it up to where there are also superstars in those leagues, which can really eat away at the talent in the NBA. So, for example, a guy like Luka the Don wouldn't even come to the NBA. He'd be the best player over there. Is that really good for the league? Nah, not for this league. So, I don't know, man. I think they really want to push the international thing, but I just think the travel could be a bit much. I think it can start getting a little watered down, to be honest with you. But maybe that's just me being small-sighted, I guess. I don't know. I don't particularly find myself too excited about that, though. So that's just what comes to mind. I think keep it domestic, keep it in the U.S. I wouldn't expand too far further than that. I really wouldn't. Keep bringing the best talent from all over the world to the U.S. But maybe invest in some of those leagues over there. And over time, hopefully, we can build them up to be as good as the NBA. And you'll start having more players playing overseas in NBA leagues and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's you start getting into monopoly territory then. I don't know if that's a good thing, but if I'm the league, it's kind of where I'm starting to think about how to do that without it affecting the overall talent level of the American 30 teams that we have here. So yeah, man. You just wish LeBron James was 25. That's what you wish. You wish LeBron James was 25 years old so we can keep this thing going for another 10, 15 years. That way you could just keep marketing him until the next superstar comes in. But, I see the shift there. The Lakers are going to try to shift toward marketing Luka Doncic over LeBron James. I don't know that actually works. I think in theory, you want to shift, but as long as Bron is there, it almost looks forced that you put Luka's name over LeBron's. Is that making any sense? It almost looks forced to me. It's like you're leaving out LeBron, even though you know damn well he's the big draw. It makes sense to try to make it so that Luka feels like he's going to be the star, and you know he will be the star when LeBron leaves, but to try to make him the number one name that you talk about before LeBron on the Lakers, it's like you're forcing it, and it's almost like it's not organic, if I'm being honest with the Lakers. LeBron James is still the biggest star in sports, not just the NBA. It's sports, bro. So when somebody's on his team, it's his team, Luka included. There's nobody in the league that's gonna outshine his stardom. That's all there is to it. Now, Luka's the nice shiny new toy, and you definitely want to market him properly. And he would be the biggest star on probably 28 of the 30 teams in this league. But here, even though on the court he probably should be your first option, when it comes to your marketing option, LeBron James is still your best marketing option. No question about it. And that's not diminishing Luka's stardom. His stardom is blinding, especially when he was with the Mavericks. But now he's coming to LeBron's team. That's exactly what he did. He claimed to LeBron's team. And so I think the Lakers are going to try to experiment with putting Luka's name as the number one name and all of that. But at the end of the day, the numbers are still going to show them LeBron James the number one draw. And I think as long as LeBron's cool with it, the Lakers can experiment with it, provide Luka all of the marketing exposure that he would otherwise be pleased with. But I think everybody in their grandmama know what real time it is when it comes to that. That's just what it is, man. And so, I think LeBron, I personally as a Laker fan don't want him to retire now that we have Luka in place. I think that our ceiling is championship so long as those two are together. I really do. And I don't know that it's not championship with Luka and another guy, but with LeBron and Luka, it's like, we can get away with not having a great center and still expect that we can potentially make the finals. That, my friends, is nothing to want to disappear, that's for sure. You want that to be right in place for the next several years. And so if LeBron wants to stay, that is a great thing so long as he and Luka are pleased with that arrangement. I don't want LeBron to retire next year or nothing like that. I really don't. I think we got a chance to get a championship or two. If LeBron can stretch this thing out for another 4 or 5 years, it's good for everybody, including Luka. So that's what I really think. Now, when AD was here, I don't know if I felt that way. But now that Luka's here, that's exactly how I feel. Like, that's just what I see there. And it's a shame because AD is an amazing player. We've already won a championship with him. But there were just certain limitations in play style and attractive ability, if that's a word. And ultimately, just like I said, it ran its course. As a Laker fan, I can legitimately say I was bored of that. I was bored of it. And I like AD a lot, and I wouldn't mind him returning someday. But I found myself tired of watching that style of play. I found myself just getting a little bit exhausted of that. And I didn't know I was exhausted with it until we had moved on from it. And then I realized how happy I was with something new. I guess that's what it was. Although I did tell y'all that I was a little worn out of this, I didn't know it was AD that I was worn out of. I thought it was basically just the whole experiment, the whole dynamic I was tired of. But when you remove AD and just simply replace him with Luka Doncic, now all of a sudden I'm excited about the dynamic. Maybe it was AD that I was ultimately saying, you know what, as a fan, it's just not very exciting product that he leads. As unfair as that is. And I like AD's style of play too. I enjoyed watching him defensively. There are certain aspects about his game that you definitely see yourself winning championships with. I think there was some personality limitations as it pertains to marketability, maybe a little bit, but he was fun. You know what I mean? I had a good time with him when we were doing well. If anything, I just felt like the Lakers, because of how the team was constructed, and some of the mistakes that the Lakers had made, were at a disadvantage with the pieces that they could bring to AD and Bron. But when you trade AD for something worth as much as Luka, now all of a sudden that's not the dynamic anymore. And you can explore ways of making your team better in ways that you maybe didn't feel like you were responsible for with a 31-year-old aging AD, having made some of the mistakes we made. It instills more value into your overall cap situation when you have LeBron James and Luka Doncic. So I think that's more of a, I guess, the better way to describe where I stand. I feel better that we have a much greater future just off of the strength of that dynamic and Luka being 25 years old. So I think that's what it is. If the Lakers could have found a way to get the same value and Bron and AD was still on the team, you know, and you made up the value somehow by getting what Luka represents on your team, minus the extraction of AD, which is significantly more valuable, by the way. But I'm just saying, if you could have found a way to get that much in place while AD was here, then you're like, all right, well, we could build something exciting around Bron and AD. But it's that value that is made up in Luka being so much more valuable than what you send out that ultimately resets your situation, and it does show up on the court when you make good decisions with your cap going forward. So that's what it is. I just think the Lakers have significantly more to work with now that you have Luka in place, being as valuable and as young as he is. So yeah, man, he's just brainstorming as a Laker fan as well. It's talking about stuff going on in this league, but at the end of the day, as a fan, you just want to see good product, sustainable product going forward. And if you get tired of it, you want to see yourself be able to move on from it too. So that balance is ultimately what I'm hoping the NBA will find a way to make more easily be the case. So that's pretty much what I have to say. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching.